Hey everybody, it's Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at Remax Camosun, host of Vancouver Island Time, and I'm here today with...
Hey everybody, it's Andrew Plank with LePage. Let me take off my sunglasses.
And we're here today to talk about the Victoria Real Estate Show, and our topic today is how to price your home.
Yes, how do you price your home? How do you price your home?
But first, we're just going to go over what's going on with the market, and we'll start from there. So let me just get this going. Okay. So coming up with the list price for your home. So this was interesting. So we have 232 new listings over the past week. That's pretty similar to last week, week over week, 224.
Is 232 last week? And
then
this week is 224?
224.
Yes.
Reading the wrong one.
Yes.
Similar to last week, 130 pending, 108 pending the week before, and then previous to that, the previous week, it was less than 100. So we're seeing a bump in activity.
Yeah, we're seeing that ratio getting closer to, again, it's less dire than we've seen in some of the past weeks. That ratio, you don't ever expect. It's very uncommon where you see a list to pending ratio that's equal. Although we have seen that because of the really hot market, in the past years. But seeing this ratio, it doesn't alarm me as much as when it was more like a 1/3. The pending was 1/3 of the new listings.
Right.
This is over half. This makes sense. And the fact that it's going up as we approach this fall is what I've been saying. We're going to see activity this fall.
Yeah. So the product tends to fluctuate, and so do the sales. And I really felt like the summer has been slower than normal. It feels like it's going to be picking up.
Yeah, agreed.
Price decreases are at 111 compared to 108 last week, and
pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. 108, 111. Potato. But it's still a lot of price decreases. People are definitely having to shave and reconsider their price point.
Yeah. Well, if you look at the number of new listings and then you look at the price decreases, it's 50%.
Yeah.
So that says to me that the sellers are coming into a market correction. That being said, I had a listing that sold earlier this year that just resold, and they got 50,000 more.
Right. Yeah.
So there you go. Okay.
Definitely, as we always say, Jane, it really depends. You can't take. We give all of this information, but you've got to take your own specific location, area, and type of home into account. So it's really important to talk to your agent.
And also, just the market value is defined as what the seller is willing to let the property go for and what the buyer is willing to pay.
Right. Well, you just gave away the how to price your home.
Okay. So looking week over week at the month to date information, you want to go ahead?
Sure. I mean, so here's the thing. I'm sort of semi outside, so these are my glasses that just turn dark in the sun. So apologies to folks. It's not that I'm ignoring you or trying to be cool. I'm not too cool for school. So last week we had 189 unconditional sales. This week we've had 304 for the month of August. Let me correct that. Last week, August 15th, as of August 15th, we had 189 unconditional sales for the full month. We're now at 304 for the full month. 468 new listings as of August 15th, and we're now up to 686. Compare that with 894 in the year before that. So we're on target, I'd say, for a similar number of new listings. That being said, if you look back up to the new sales, unconditional sales, 304 versus 831 last year, we're definitely down for that. Active listings, we're certainly up over last year. We're this 2,178 as of August 22nd. What's interesting is this is a lower number than last week, 2,190. So although we have listings coming on and sales happening, we actually have less inventory than we had last week. What do you want? Do you have any comments on that, Jane?
Well, I mean, year over year, we're lower. We are higher in inventory and lower in sales. So that says to me that that's where the correction is coming from.
Mhm.
There's more choice out there and buyers are taking their time.
Yes.
So that, you know, so I was out showing properties yesterday with a buyer and they're like, well, maybe we should wait. We found them a really nice home. And I'm like, I don't know if this home will come up again. Like, if you like a home, and especially if you're renting, the best time to buy a home is now. We don't know what's going to happen when increases happen. I think they're going to happen in September. There's going to be an announcement upcoming. And so, you know, how is that going to affect you in your financing?
Yeah, I just had a client. She has a rate lock that expires in early September, and she'd been looking before and then came back to the table and's been looking again. And she's quite aware of the market, but she's seen now more properties that are of interest to her. And with a few to select from, she chose one to pursue. And the idea was, you know, if you could continue to look, and maybe you'll have more selection in the future, but with higher interest rates and especially losing the rate lock, is this going to cost her more? And honestly, you know, when you find that property that you really like, or that, you know, could really work for you, and Jane, you and I have said before, 80% is probably, you know, it's hard to find 100% perfect house. If you're looking for that, you might take years to find it and never find it, and it'll cost you so much to do so. So, you know, let's find you a great home, but don't wait for the right one, like the absolute perfect right one. But yeah, it just made sense. And what we did was the sellers had specific dates they were looking for, and they didn't quite line up with my client's rate lock. Her rate lock was going to expire before these folks wanted their closing, but it was only like a nominal number of days. So what we did was we closed within the rate lock period and then gave possession later. And this is just
Yeah.
what you do in the market. We just negotiate and come up with solutions.
Yeah. And I've done that myself as well. And the reason for that is because the seller's closing may be related to a mortgage that they have where they have a fixed rate and they'll receive a big penalty. So, and the buyer also will receive a big penalty if she then has to purchase later than her rate hold. So you're trying to meet the best of both worlds, and compromise is the key here.
There's often a domino of other properties that need to fall into place that we have no control over. You know, the sellers of the home may have already made an offer on another home that has specific dates lined up, and those sellers of that other home may have an offer on a different home that have specific dates lined up, and everything needs to lockstep into place. So there can be very little flexibility sometimes with these closing dates.
Yeah. So, and you know, these things become apparent when you're starting to negotiate. So you talk about your offer. Usually what we do is have a discussion ahead of time, what dates work for the seller. I mean, obviously if it's vacant, sooner is better. But then the seller comes back with their answer and then we get down to the nitty-gritty, right?
Yeah, negotiation is always an interesting one. And you know, I always suggest to my buyers or my sellers, you know, ask for what you need, and we'll find out where the pain points are and where the flexibility points are for the other party after the response. You know, so.
And this is why you want to be a collaborative realtor, because you can get the most from the buyer or seller by communicating well with the other realtor.
Yeah, again, if there's pain points and we know there's like fixed points that we have to work around, we do our best to work around them. If there's movable points, we can, you know, each give and take on some end to alleviate that. So communication really helps. It's good to work with collaborative colleagues as opposed to ones that are, you know, aggressive and trying to win at all costs, because they're the ones who usually end up losing on behalf of their clients.
Yeah, Andrew.
What?
Who said real estate was stressful? I'm 48 and I feel great.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah.
So we're talking about pricing your home. Andrew's got his listing presentation today. He's going to go through it. Basically, when you list your home, you think your home is looks pretty good. We always
It
sometimes,
does. Your home looks great.
yeah.
Go listen to Jane.
So when we go in to talk with a seller, they're trying to put their home. I'm surprised when I go to view a home and they haven't really put an effort into making it show well. But it does happen. So we help them make it show the best it possibly can. And then your lender's going to come in. They may want to do, or the buyer's lender, they may want to do an appraisal. And so what they're showing here is that the lender may decide, and this is US because the lender and appraiser are definitely different. The lender is going to be very conservative in their estimate. The appraiser is going to be even more conservative because they're looking at lending value. So they're anticipating where the market's going, what's just sold, and where you fit in. And then the buyer is going to be also conservative because they're betting that the market's going to go down. And then this isn't always true. Tax assessment follows where the market's been. So it looks at where the market was last year between May and October, average for July 1st. So these are all different values. And Andrew, why don't you share your screen?
See what I can find here and pull that up. So this is going to get looking a little weird here for a moment while it creates an infinity loop. But I'll get to my other screen really quickly here. I'm just on my laptop outside here today. So
Oops.
How's that? I can't see.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, here we go. Yeah.
Okay. And this is not my full listing or client presentation. This is a section of it that just has some things that are to talk about around price and some of the things that we want to talk about. So when we are talking with a client about price, we want to talk about what the temperature of the market is. Like what is the current market looking like? And Jane and I, this is what you're probably here for. Jane and I always talk about what's going on in the marketplace. Is it going up? Is it going down? Is it steady? Do we anticipate any bumps on the horizon? And what strategies might we want to take into consideration when pricing for a buyer's market or a seller's market or a balanced market? These are all important factors.
Also, I just want to add that the temperature of the market can be dependent on the city. It can be dependent on the neighborhood, or it could be national. And so these are all different factors that we're looking at.
Absolutely. And again, like we've said many times, are we selling a property that's maybe Airbnb possible? And is it really middle of summer and people might be really thinking about this? Like, are we selling a vacation home? Different times of year, different types of property, different legislations, all can make a difference for that. So that's all important. This is a link to the real estate board stats. I'm not going to go into them. This is something we obviously want to talk with our clients about is, what's going on in the statistics, what has happened recently, and how do they apply to your specific property. When it comes to pricing your home, it's really important to see how your home fits against the competition. And that's the most important thing when it comes to strategy in terms of pricing a home is, what is going on out there? What information can we gather to tell us what to consider? Jane and I do this all the time where we talk about the market cycles and look at these this graph. This one is an older graph, but it illustrates quite well that there are market cycles. When we look at every year, there's a ramp up in the spring, and then there's kind of maybe a slow plateau down over the summer, and then usually there can be a bit of a bump in the fall, although we're not always seeing it. And this one doesn't really show it so much, but it's just important to know that, if you're listing your home in December, and Jane and I have talked about this, it's going to take a different strategy. It doesn't mean it won't sell. You can see that there are sales happening, but you just won't necessarily have the same strategy. So it's important to talk strategy. It's also important to understand the sales to active listings ratio, which Shane and I talk about again often, and where is it at in the marketplace, and are we in, again, a balanced or upper price point market, like a buyer's market where there's pressure upwards, or a seller's market where there's pressure more downwards, and there's not as much motivation for buyers to buy right away. This is Jane's. This is a different interpretation of the same slide Jane was showing just a moment ago, and it really is just to let everyone know that there is no one price for a home. There's the negotiated end price, so we can kind of always work backwards and say, well, that home sold for that, so that must be what it's worth. But until the home's sold, we can't really say what it's worth. We can really come up with some ranges, some ideas of value, and maybe slot in, what kind of buyer activity we're seeing for these types of homes. But your own home, you're going to look at it, and you're going to see it with rose-colored glasses, perhaps, because you've lived in it for a number of years. And you have to really take yourself out of that mentality and look at it like a product, and forget about the fact that, maybe it has a much better living room than any other, pardon me, property you've seen, because it may have an inferior bathroom or something else that balances that out. And you can't just take all the positives. I find a lot of sellers do this. They take all the positives of the property, add them together, and say, this is why someone's going to love my property. But there's no perfect property, and there's often some balancing acts. And when we work with buyers, Jane, you can attest to this. Buyers have their own specific needs, and your property may not fit. There may not be an exact overlay. So this, the vision of that property and the eyes that are seeing that property are going to see that property differently than you would. And that's what this kind of illustration is to say. Not that we're looking at the same property just through really 5 different sets of eyes. I like to say that if you're trying to price a property and you're looking at similar sales, and what we do is we do look at comparable properties. We try to find properties that are relatively comparable to your property. Never going to find an exact match. But if we were to sort of look at what kind of pricing and sales are happening, we're going to find that if we were to graph it out, we might find that there's going to be some hot spots where we might find price points that really work for that kind of property, and price points where there's not so much happening.
Can I show something similar to that?
Yeah. Do you want me to stop sharing and then come back?
Sure.
Okay.
So I'll just share my screen here. And I'll just share this window. Hold on. So I was looking, can you see the screen?
Yeah.
This is just Central Saanich. So I was looking with a client on the weekend, and we were looking at houses, and I was saying that when I compared this particular home to other homes that I've shown, I can see this one was priced at $899. It's gone down to $829. Mm-hmm. For 3-bedroom. I thought it was really well priced. So when you look at the criteria, you can see, active and pending. These are the most recent sales, listings and sales, and then what's sold in the last 30 days. These are usually closings that happened over the past number of probably 6 to 8 weeks. But there's actually no solds. They're all active and pending. And we can see the list to sale ratio here that, nothing's coming in at list price. So just looking with a client, I'm looking over the data, and I'm explaining to them, this is what else is for sale. And this is where this fits in. And sometimes there isn't a lot of data. And so when we're pricing a home, we can start to go back and look a little further out and see where
hang on.
Pardon?
The one on Damelart, I think I showed that one some time ago. It's still around. Or no, that's a sale, is it? Yeah.
No, it's current.
It's still current. Okay, wow.
Yeah. But you can see over time, the list to sale, these were all selling a lot higher than where they are now. Now, if I take out the sold criteria and I just look at what's on the market right now and pending, there's only 2 that have gone pending. So there's more choice out there for people, for sure.
Now, when it comes to pricing, I just, if you want to go back to that list, I'd like to point out, there's two ways to consider your pricing strategy. And one is you look at what's actively out there and that's your current competition, and you price accordingly. And that's one strategy. But the problem is, like you'll see many examples here where there's property listed for $899 and now is asking $829 and then goes down to $799. So you can't really establish a value based on an unsold property,
Right.
because these are moving targets, and especially in a market that's a moving market. But what you can do is establish your placement amongst those properties. And if you're going to price your property higher than properties that are of equivalent condition and location and quality and usability, you're going to not get a sale because people are going to go through the other ones first and select and pick up that inventory. And if you're going to price under those, then you might get a sale. And if you price sort of amongst the crowd, that's totally fine. That's fair strategy, as long as that amongst the crowd is amongst fairly priced homes. And again, taking the market into consideration, you have a reasonable chance of selling.
Yeah. Well, what you're doing is figuring out, imagine if you were selling socks and they're all similar socks and they're priced from here to here. Where do you fit in? And how do you want to appear in relation to the other socks?
Yeah. And some people think that, you hire the realtor and they're going to market those socks in a way that's going to get that same pair of socks, right? Twice the price of another pair of socks. And we've all seen in marketing that is possible with the right branding and so forth to some degree. But with housing, certainly you want to package it well and present it well, but we're not, but buyers are very savvy and they know what they're looking for. And so they're going to recognize good value versus overpriced.
We're all looking at the same market, people.
So what happens, what your realtor is doing and what we're trying to do is help you understand and help you come to and give you guidance to, this is, pardon me, sorry, this is where the market is. This is where you fit into it. And this is where we want to kind of project the future. So this is your sold point. Let's try to get there.
And also, I just want to say, so I advertised a listing on the weekend and somebody who lives in that area objected. They thought it was priced too high. And I'm like, that's fine. You can say the comment to me.
Yeah.
But don't post it on social media.
Oh,
it's not fair to the seller.
I had the same thing happen. I'm still, I'll gift card to the person who gives me the best comeback for this. But I have a property listed, and it's, for the average price condo in town is a 2-bed, 2-bath condo might be $600, $700, $750, $1,000. But this one's a water view, larger unit, and right on the inner harbor, so it's priced at $899, which is comparable to the comps. And somebody on social media, I boosted the marketing on this, and somebody on social media said, "Oh, why so cheap? What's wrong with this?" And I'm like, so I know that this isn't like a cheap condo, and I know they're not looking at it. I know this is a sarcastic comment. I'm quite confident it's a sarcastic comment. So how do I respond to this? And I want to do so fun and professionally at the same time. So.
Oh, so so you can text Andrew how to respond to that.
Yeah.
I just think
$10 gift card for the best response.
Yeah. So, I mean,
and then you'll be hired as my social media.
There was a guy who used to who's now a realtor who used to do comments like that. And he took one of my listings and he put it on a site and he got thousands of comments on it. And I was like, oh my God, my poor sellers. Right. There's social responsibility here, people.
There's also that whole saying though, Jane, of like, I don't care what you say about me as long as you're talking. That was like, it's a paraphrasing P.T. Barnum, but exposure and conversation is good. But it is too bad that people make these frivolous comments without like
consideration.
Yeah, no consideration.
Okay. So do you want to go back to Do you have anything else you want to say on your PowerPoint?
There might be some other bits there. Let's just go in there and have a look. So go back to share screen.
I like this scatter graph here. Because it tells you, well, explain it to him.
Well, it just really, I mean, you can do this as well, but it really tells you that there's no set price point. It can just tell you that there's probably price areas, you know. That's the way I think about a scatter graph, and the fact that, you know, it can give you some useful information. What we're doing is just, when we're tracing a home, is we're gathering as much information as possible and then trying to, from that, come up with a good pricing strategy for the seller. And again, generally, I mean, some agents will say this is your value or this is your price. I like to talk in ranges. You know, here's the range that your property will sell really quickly in. This is the range that's probably a reasonable price. This is the range that you're maybe grasping at straws, but there's a chance you'll sell. There's also a chance you'll be on market too long, go stale, and end up getting less than you would have if you started at a lower price point. So,
and that's a great point to make, that sometimes people, like if you were to price where we were 2 years ago, you'd probably get multiple offers.
Yeah, but if you price now for multiple offers, you might miss out on, you know, pricing higher now than before might still get you some negotiation if you're priced in a point amongst your peers in terms of your listings. But pricing too low might end up not having the multiple offer strategy come about, where you get more than asking, and you may just have to deal with the person, you know, offers as they come, and it may not be as much as you could have gotten. Jane, you know, you in your original slide, you talked about appraised and assessed market value. These are 3 different ways that we can look at value. And some people will pull up their appraised value and wave it in front of us and say, this is the value of my home. Or they will say, and I'm talking buyers and sellers, for, let's say, assessed value. Buyers will definitely look at assessed value and say, well, why is this house priced 25% above assessed value? The government obviously knows what it's worth, and that's honestly not true. So we look at market value, and market value is really led by what the market is doing. And when it comes, you're asking us to sell a home on the market, we can't really look to appraised value or assessed value as anything other than pieces of information to take into account on the whole. Any comments?
Also, appraised value is based on what the market was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And assessed value is based on what the market was doing a year. It's always going to be 6 months out of date.
It's also still subjective, although an appraiser is supposed to be objective, and most of the time somewhat are. There's still one individual, just like we agents are usually one individual doing, taking their own background of information and their own ideas of what this property is. They do take objective data and plug it in and output an appraised value. But as Jane said, it's based on past sales. And then the assessed value is based on past sales set for a certain date, so they can set the assessed value based on that date, which is I think end of June.
July 1st.
July 1st.
Yeah. Also, appraised value. I mean, I'd often be called in to review an appraisal and look at comparables. And because I've been in the houses, I can say, okay, you know what? Well, this doesn't have a view that the one you're comparing it to does, or this one has a double car garage and it costs more than $30,000 to build a garage. All these things.
I had a colleague ask me to do them a favor because they were looking to list a home, and it was a divorce situation, and the parties had obtained an appraisal, and the appraisal was for much, like I looked at that, and I looked at the area, and I was quite familiar with the area, and I thought this is over $100,000 under value, this appraisal, and it was a recent appraisal. So, it's not a bad idea to get multiple opinions, folks, or at least
Exactly.
at least, look closely at what was used as comparable properties. An appraisal does have a report. It shows what they were using for their data. Same with a market analysis that we realtors do. So, how do we estimate value? We can look at three different approaches for that a realtor can use. And the main one we use is the market approach, where we base it on similar property sales. That's the last of this list of three. There are other ways to do it. If it's an investment property we're looking at, we might want to look at the return on investment and whether or not it's in alignment with other properties of similar value. Because obviously, if you're looking for an investment property, you want the best return on investment. And if it's not lined up, then it's probably overpriced.
Right. I do find it's harder to, like as a listing agent, to sell to an investor because they are looking at the cost, the value of that property. So
they're not looking at the bricks and mortar. They're just looking at the inputs and outputs.
Yeah. So
it's a different way to look at it, and absolutely valid. Although I always stress that the fundamentals always apply. There are many people who will take a property and eke the most possible income out of it. Does that make that property worth more? On paper, perhaps, but it may not be as well built or have as great a location or other things that might help it fundamentally go up in value over time.
Yeah, exactly.
And in Victoria, you should not be buying for the income. You should be buying for the future value, I think. The third approach is cost approach, which is, and these are just, again, a good thing just to consider, is to look at the price of the land and the cost to build an equivalent home today. And obviously, if there's a house on that property for, $2 million, and you can buy the land for $300,000 and build an equivalent house for $1 million, then it's overpriced by $700,000.
Yeah.
Which good luck finding the land for 300. But this is just a point that these are ways to consider looking at value when we're putting it all together. We will look at a lot of things like when we're coming up with value. So
it's funny. Like the longer you're in real estate, the more you consider.
Yeah.
I guess, and part of that is when you're working with buyers, you get a perspective of what they're seeing on the market and how they're responding. And when you're working with sellers, you're seeing how the offers are coming in and what the points are that the buyer's agents are making.
Yeah.
So I really think it's important to work with agents who work both sides.
Absolutely.
For that reason.
So folks, and everybody's got their own way of doing business, and to each their own. There are some teams that have a main agent, and that agent only deals with listing and selling homes and doesn't really get too involved in the purchasing of homes. There's that, and then they'll have buyers agents that are generally not as experienced agents, and certainly don't have a lot of experience with listing and selling homes. Their specialty is working with buyers, and you get, in that structure, you get a specialty listing system and you get a specialty buyer's agent, but you don't get the combination and that little special sauce of marriage of that understanding of how they both fit together. And I can wear both hats, and Jane can wear both hats. We can walk into a situation and really recognize what's going on and what might be in the seller might be thinking, what the buyer might be thinking, and also just how best to negotiate and strategize this.
Yeah. Also, the relationship of the realtor with the other agents is important.
Mm-hmm.
The data you need to write the offer or for the listing to see, because sometimes realtors will share how many people came through a house if it's sold. It's no skin off their back. So ask those questions to see how things went when they were listing their property. And sometimes the market just changes. Yeah.
Now, Jane, I don't know about you, but I have seen many properties list, and back in the day, earlier on in our career, you might see a property listed and they didn't actually have the title ready for you or something like that. But they would have had the title, but they don't have the title charges pulled. Title can have a number of charges attached to it, like rights of way and easements and so forth. And without knowing the effect of those, it can really, those can really impact value. And I find it really interesting that people list properties without actually doing that kind of research. And
Like, for instance, the neighbor may have access over the property.
Yeah, the neighbor could, maybe take their horse over the middle of the property to access the road because they don't have a regular access for it or something. That's rare, but there's certainly a lot of things that are hidden surprises that without full research, it can impact value. And this is the thing: the value is based on your use and your, the piece of land itself. If there's restrictions on its use, that's going to be restrictions on its value. That's where the zoning is really important, and looking at the title is really important. Looking at the official community plan and future development potential is important. Knowing what's going on in the neighborhood. Is there going to be a high rise right behind the home? These are things that are part of the research that you as a listing agent do that go into value, and you as a buyer's agent. Let's just actually, I want to say really quickly here that all that we're talking about doing here for a seller, we can also do for a buyer, and we do for a buyer when it comes time for them to make an offer. So we can help them to make a good decision around whether or not that property is, whether the agent for that property and the seller are being realistic. And
so I also want to say, there has been advice by a lawyer in the city, a real estate lawyer, not to fill out the property disclosure statement.
Right.
Because and the one particular brokerage is following that advice, and that's fine. But just understand that the property disclosure statement is also a way of asking the seller questions to determine some maybe red flags that may be coming up in the listing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was there an old fire in the property? Was there, and that came up in a listing of mine, that if I hadn't asked the question, I wouldn't have gotten the answer. So
Right.
it's really important when you're listing to do your research. Ask the seller. Sometimes they're hard questions, and give examples. Like, has your house ever been infested by ants or whatever, or rodents? And well, not now. Okay, well, when did that happen? What happened? How did you mitigate that? These are all.
Don't hide this stuff from your agents, because here's the thing, folks. If you list your home for sale and there's something hidden, a good buyer's inspection will probably bring it up. And if it doesn't, and you've hidden it, and it's something that you should have disclosed, then when they buy and the neighbor says, "Oh, by the way, did you know there was a fire there, 6 months ago?" You're going to get sued, and it's going to cost you. And it's going to cost you time and energy and money and stuff that you just don't really want to have to afford. So why not just deal with it in the light of day? Move on.
I had a seller who didn't want to say that they had taken out a wall in a listing. And I'm like, it's a duplex. The mirror image is on the other side. They're going to know.
They're going to know. And, you hide that. So here's the thing. Let's play devil's advocate. You hide it. It's discovered that you hid it. And even if it didn't really affect the buyer in a negative way, they are going to potentially have some problem with it and maybe feel like they paid too much, maybe sue for something that they wouldn't have sued for before. If you disclose it, there's nothing they can do about it. A lot of times people will just say, "Okay, I understand. Thanks for letting me know," and they move on.
Yeah, and it's not what you know; it's when you find it out. So
yeah.
Find it out before the inspection, before the offer comes in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are some of the considerations, zoning, title, development potential, neighborhood amenities, home square footage, of course, how the floor plan is, what the lot sign is, updates, age, condition, landscaping, restrictions on use, all of these things. So how do we price it? We price it one of three ways. I mean, realistically, are we going to undercut the market and create a fire sale? Are we going to price it optimistically and hope somebody comes to the table? Or are we going to be realistic around pricing and price it based, attached to and connected with what we're seeing reasonably in the market? And those are our choices.
Yeah, and a buyer goes to a property and they say, how did they come up with this price? And as a buyer agent, we have to explain, okay, well, this was probably their strategy. The buyer is looking around for clues all the time.
Yeah.
So they want to determine whether or not you as a seller are being reasonable.
Yeah.
So just consider all of that. Okay.
Yeah, how many times have you had the conversation, well, let's list it high, they can always bring an offer.
Yeah. That's
So
nice.
do you want to comment on that?
How long do you want to have it on the market? And then I look at clients who've done that and I say to them, listen, I'm going to market your house the same way no matter what.
Yeah.
I'm going to try my best. And if we don't get activity, that is a sure sign that you're priced too high.
Yeah.
And it's like putting a Fiat in a Jaguar car lot.
Yeah.
And pricing it for the same price.
Right. At the same price as the Jags. So here's the thing: somebody's going to go if they're looking for that. They're not going to negotiate on that Fiat. They're going to negotiate on the Jags. Oh, they can always negotiate on price. If your property is priced, 10% above the others of similar quality and use, someone's going to and you think somebody wants to negotiate with you, they're going to go negotiate with the folks that have priced the 10% lower. They're still going to want to negotiate. They're just not going to negotiate with you.
The way I do it now is I always say, put your feet in the buyer's shoes. What is the buyer perceiving when they see how you've priced the house? And what are they going to say? And the seller will be like, well, my home is better. It has this and that and the other thing. I'm like, okay, well, let's go and look at the other homes and see where you do fit in. And usually the reality, that's the reason why we have the pictures. That's why I do those long, boring videos, because the long, boring videos really show the property and buyers love them.
Yeah.
Buyers are like, oh, I understood now where that room fit in the house. Oh, the way you talked about it, I realized those were, laminate countertops, not solid surface. Rather than just looking at the picture, they actually know what's going on.
Yeah.
Oh, my back's killing me.
Okay. We've seen this before. We don't need to go to it, and that's negotiations. We don't need to go into this stuff, but I have a presentation that could go for hours or go for at minimum half an hour if I talk really fast. So we're going to just stop there because we're talking pricing today, and I'm going to ask if anyone has. If anybody has questions, please raise your hand or pop into the chat.
We got one like from Carol Kerr. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay. We are going a bit long today, so we're going to end it here. And next week we're going to be talking we're going to be right at the very end of the month, but I don't think we're going to be quite there yet. So I'm just coming back. I'm going to be away on a holiday. I'm going to a business conference. So
for you,
wish me luck. I'm up for an award. Yay.
Okay. So you're in town. I'll be in Smithers, but I'll be talking to you from Smithers, visiting some family in Smithers.
Okay.
So,
do you have any new listings coming up?
I have a listing coming up in Royal Oak. It's the townhouse on Pipeline Road, 2-story townhouse, master bedroom up, plus a den up, plus a office / bedroom down. It's about 1,600 square feet. Listing should be signed and price should be confirmed very soon. Will be easy to show. Will be able to. It will need some work. It's built in the 90s and is pretty original in there, but it's a great complex, very popular complex, wonderful for retirees.
Awesome. Okay, yeah. I have one coming up on Trestle, 291 Trestle. It's priced at $747. It's 3-bedroom, 2-bath.
Creek area.
Yeah. And then we're relisting our unit number 5, 2715 Shelburne Street. That one is off Shelburne. It's actually behind the first set of townhomes. And it is rentable because she's just had it rented and there are no other rentals. Only one rental is allowed in the complex. And then I have another one coming up at 15 Jedburgh. This is going to be, it's a rancher. It's on a 10,000 square foot lot, and it is 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms as well. And it's being renovated. It looks really nice. And that's on a nice level lot. That should be coming up in the next week or so.
Good.
Awesome. Okay.
So much for taking the time with us today. And Jane, it's great to see you. Right. And as you know, please remember to like and subscribe.
Yes. And please subscribe to our YouTube page. Also, remember, we are here every Monday morning. And if there is something that you want to discuss, please just message me or Andrew and tell us what you want to hear. We love it. We know that a lot of realtors are watching our shows, which kind of surprised us, but that's okay. We want to know what you want to hear. Okay. So, Andrew, how do people reach you?
Please reach out. I'm at 250-360-6106 or email info@andrewplank.com. andrewplank.com is the website. Or, of course, we were talking about social media earlier. You can check at Plank Andrew on Instagram. I'm on Facebook and all of those places, as is Jane.
He's Plank Andrew because when we took our first course, that's how they put his name down. That's so cute. All right. Jane Johnston, you can reach me at 250-744-0775. My email is briarhillgroup@gmail.com, and you can look at videos on buying and selling at briarhillgroup.com, or you can view these videos and more at vancouverisland.com, where we talk about neighborhoods. Okay. Have a great week. Get well soon.
Thanks so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Jane.
Bye. Thank you.